Good afternoon. How are you all doing today? You having a good time at South by Southwest EDU? I hope so. Certainly I am, and have been looking forward very much to today's keynote address. My name is Ron Reed, and again, thanks for being here. A couple of programming announcements before some introductions, please. First of all, I want to share with you that if you didn't join us yesterday for Aseneth Andrews, you missed a sight to behold. She was spectacular, and Aseneth, if you're in the audience, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I found it very inspiring. A couple quick programming notes for you. Following the keynote conversation about MOOCs, massive open online courses that are really revolutionizing and empowering large-scale learning, a conversation that I think you'll really enjoy very much. Following this keynote conversation, a couple of social things to put on your agenda, or at least highlight for your consideration. Yesterday evening, there were a number of meetups on the 4th floor of the Hilton. There will be a variety of different hosts, but the same model continues. There was a lot of energy, a lot of networking opportunities, so please, 5:30 to 7:30, know that you and your colleagues are welcomed on the 4th floor of the Hilton right across the street. A second quick programming note this evening. There's been 2 days of pitches at Launch EDU with 24 companies going through a bit of a bake-off. The winners of that will be announced at the Launch EDU party this evening at the stage on 6th Street. This evening is kindly hosted by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as well as My EDU. There'll be some music, perhaps an adult beverage or two, and a good time should be had by all. And while we look forward to announcing 2 winners, I'll simply share that all of the contestants are winners. We really celebrate all of their work, and that's what this evening and the party are in large measure about. And finally, tomorrow morning, CK12 has been kind enough to host a breakfast at Brush Square Park across the street. I know you're getting a little weary, and so a little fuel tomorrow to conclude the conference will be perhaps appreciated. And again, thanks to CK12. So look for them at Brush Square Park, the park across the street from the Hilton Hotel. I have an odd manner of introducing today's keynote conversation, and it begins with a simple line and a very short story. My wife is a marathon runner. This November, she was excited and looking forward to running the New York Marathon. And we had gone up for the marathon, which, as you know, was canceled as a result of the unfortunate storm Sandy. My wife, passionate as she is about running, on Sunday morning when the marathon was scheduled to occur, ran with her girlfriends around Central Park 3 or 4 times. I did not join her, and instead I felt compelled to be a New Yorker. I went downstairs in the hotel lobby. I bought a 14-pound Sunday edition of the New York Times to read. I got a quart of coffee, and I felt so New Yorkish as I went back up to the room, put on a playoff game, started reading the paper and drinking a big bucket of coffee. Pure coincidence, in the Sunday supplement that week was I found a most amazing article declaring this is the year of the MOOC. An article written by Laura Pappano and an interview with the two individuals who she will introduce you to from edX and Coursera. So without any further ado, please help me warmly welcome Laura Pappano to the stage to begin the MOOC keynote conversation. Thank you all for being here. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Hello, everybody. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be in Austin because I, at my house, am getting a snowstorm right now. Or just about to, and I think Anant as well is going to get snowstorm. Andrew is upset because there is apparently a cloud around Palo Alto. So thank you so much for being here. I must tell you that I am absolutely thrilled to be involved in this very cool event around education. We were just talking backstage about how wonderful is it that so many people are so pumped up about education these days. I've been covering education for 25 years. And the questions are getting more interesting, the issues are getting more urgent, and the solutions are getting more provocative. And some of that provocative stuff we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about MOOCs. Who here has taken a MOOC? Who here has finished a MOOC? Okay. Well, it's not your fault. We'll get to that later. Who here has students who've taken MOOCs? Great. And I bet you in the future you're going to have more of them. Who here has heard of MOOCs but is not really sure what they are? Okay, not too bad, or maybe people aren't fessing up. So just a quick gloss for those who don't know what a MOOC is. A MOOC is a massive open online course, and it's different from old-style online courses, which were more like correspondence courses. These are live, made-for-you videos interspersed with quizzes. They're engaging. There are new cool tools that have been invented to kind of help you learn and give feedback, and we can talk more about those today. There are discussion forums, there are Facebook study groups. It's a whole new way of being. And the idea is this: take the most wonderful, intelligent, brilliant professors in the world and put them online, in most cases for free. And this idea has caught fire. And like every idea that goes viral on the internet, it cries out to be shaped and organized. And we're incredibly fortunate today to have with us for our conversation two of the true pioneers in this field. We have Andrew Ng, who is a professor of computer science at Stanford and was last fall ran one of the first MOOCs, the machine learning course, which attracted over 100,000 people registering. And he is the co-founder with Daphne Koller of Coursera. We also are incredibly fortunate to have Anant Agarwal. Anant is a professor at MIT, and he directed the Artificial Intelligence Lab and now is the president of edX. And also has taught and pioneered the Circuits and Electronics course on edX. And if any of you have taken that MOOC, you know he has a passion for chainsaws. So let me give you a couple of numbers here. Coursera, as Andrew has pointed out, reached more than 1 million users before Facebook, faster than Facebook. Today, there are more than 2.8 million users, 323 courses, 62 university partners, from names like Princeton and Duke to the Chinese University of Hong Kong. edX has partnered with 12 universities, has 25 courses, and over 700,000 unique users. We're going to have a free-form, interesting conversation here, and I just wanted to start by having each of them talk about, why now? Why has this exploded, and it has absolutely exploded? Why has it exploded now?
Sure. So I think when we launched the modern MOOC movement out of Stanford, none of us expected that our courses would have enrollments of 100,000 students and up. But I think we're all surprised at the number of students that signed on. But I think what caught the imagination of people was that you can now take courses, and these are real courses from some of the best professors at the best universities, where every week you watch lectures, every week you do homeworks, you get feedback from students about your homeworks, and rather than studying in isolation with 50,000 or 100,000 classmates, there's a community of students that come together to support each other in these learning materials. And if you complete the class and meet a high grading bar, you also receive a certificate or similar that you can put in your resume and use to find a better job. So we will launch these things out of Stanford, and shortly after took the technology to offer it to now our 62 university partners. I think there's such a great need in our society for affordable, high-quality education that a lot of people started signing on.
So I think there's another way to look at it as well, which is that I call it the perfect storm of education. A number of social, cultural, and technological events came together over the past couple of years that really created this perfect, the soup, this perfect storm that, really enabled the MOOC movement to start. Because online learning, has been around for, 2 decades. I mean, people have been doing online courses within campuses and outside, open to the public. This has been going on for a while. Why now? One of the big things that has happened in the past 3 or 4 years is look at where our kids are spending, our time, spending their time. A lot of time on Facebook, social networking. Social networking has become really, really big. And then you look at video. YouTube is, in everybody's, minds. You can watch videos. We can distribute videos very effectively with very high quality videos. And finally, cloud computing, where I can go from students, 100 students signing up, to 100,000 students signing up with a couple of keystrokes. So cloud computing, social networking, and technologies like video distribution really came together that enabled just the rapid expansion and scaling of MOOCs. Just to give you an example, when we launched our first course at edX, announced in January of last year in 2012, we expected to get, about a couple thousand students. If there were 200, we would be embarrassed. If it was 20,000, it would be a disaster because we hadn't tested our systems against those numbers. We had 10,000 students enrolled in the first few hours. And luckily, because of cloud computing, they were hosted by Amazon, a couple of keystrokes, and boom, you could add a whole bunch of servers, and you could scale up to very large numbers. And we ended up with 155,000 students, taking the course. So I think many of these events came together in a perfect educational storm that enabled us to launch this whole movement.
So one of the things is that there's so much is evolving so fast, and I've gotten that from both of you. And yet I want you to track back, way back to 2011, and share with everyone, what are the things, what did you think this was going to look like? What did you think were going to be the big challenges and some of the exciting pieces? And how is it, what has surprised you most, in essence, from what you thought then and what you're seeing happen now?
Sure, there's just a large number of things that have surprised us. The single biggest one in my mind was the power of the discussion forum. So when we launched the course, we had 155,000 students taking it. And honestly, I was petrified. I didn't sleep for 3 nights when the course launched. So we had as many TAs and instructors as in a 100-person on-campus class. So we launched the course, and I've told everybody, 7 by 24, we have to be on the discussion forum, answering questions all day long. That's it. This is our life from here on. So I'm sitting on the second day at 2 a.m. at night, trying to answer questions and type as fast as I can. I'm not a good typist. And a question pops up. I'm trying to type the answer. And before I could complete the answer, I see an answer pop in from a student in Pakistan that almost correctly answers the question asked by another student on the discussion forum. And then I said, that's not quite right, so I'm trying to correct it. And then before I could correct it, somebody else has popped in an answer. And then I sit back, absolutely fascinated. This was an epiphany for me. Before I knew it, boom, 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 students discussed and went back and forth. And in the end, they got the right answer. As an instructor, I blessed it as a right answer. I mean, to me, this was just an absolute epiphany, something we never realized, where you could scale up to a large number of students and use students themselves helping each other in this peer-to-peer learning format, whereas instructors, we could just sit and watch and let them answer their questions, learning through teaching. And students have said that to us. To me, that the power of social networking applied for the good, for learning, has just been an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I think actually, I'm glad you found the discussion forum features useful. It took us, frankly, 5 years at Stanford to fit up the details until we got it right. It turns out in the discussion forum, if you have 200 students in the class, you can do almost anything and it work well. But if you have 100,000 students, the technology to prevent duplicate questions, so let students vote up and down, that took us a long time to figure out. And now, of course, it's in every single MOOC, pretty much, I think. But let me share with you one of my surprises. When we first launched the first few MOOCs, I had certain preconceptions about what the MOOC should be like. There's videos, there's quizzes, there's discussion forum, you get a certificate, and that's it. Working with over 300 professors, many of them have totally blown away my preconceptions about what the MOOC should be like. So here's one thing that happened to me about a year ago. I learned an interesting lesson. I learned that if you walk into a poetry professor's office, and if you show the poetry professor your, shiny new multiple choice auto-grading technology, and if you try to convince him to teach a poetry class using multiple choice, he will invite you to exit his office. So because of that, we wound up having to develop a lot of new technology to offer courses in the humanities, the social sciences, and so on. One example of that is peer grading, in which we've developed, if in a poetry class or a design class or a history class, if you want to have students write essays, you can't grade 100,000 essays. So what we did was develop a sophisticated system to let students grade each other's work. If you've taken a class in one of those courses, your experience would be you'd be asked to first do the work, then you'd be shown an instructor-supplied grading rubric that teaches you how to grade other students' work. You'd then be asked to demonstrate proficiency in grading, show that you can assign grades similar to the instructor on a few pieces of work. And then finally, you'll be asked to grade, say, 5 pieces of work, and in exchange, you get feedback from 5 students about the quality of your own work. We've run peer grading in maybe 35 classes now and shown that it works pretty well. And this has been key to enabling, this innovation was one of the innovations I'm particularly proud of, has been key to enabling us to offer courses in humanities, soft design, business, law, finance, and areas like that.
Great. I mean, and one thing I'm hearing from both of you is this kind of surprise about how the way the MOOCs are being used is shaping the MOOCs themselves. And a couple weeks ago on the phone, Andrew, you said, I think that our conception of what a MOOC is may turn out to be wrong. So I'm curious what you meant by that.
Yeah, here's another example. So I guess as a computer science professor, I teach type of artificial intelligence, I teach machine learning. I taught my class in a certain way with lectures and homeworks and discussions, and and that was pretty much it. But interacting with humanities professors, I was meeting professors with much more interactive modes of engagement where there is no lecture, and they spend the entire lecture doing close reading of poetry or walking from student to student and very deeply engaging with the student to elicit the meaning of humanist pieces out of the student. And so working with professors such as these, like Alvarez from UPenn, has been an inspiration really to learn about the different types of pedagogy and to develop them and put them online. MOOCs are so new. I think we're just in the process of inventing, the table of contents, the chapter headings, the page numbers, and I honestly don't know what the future of MOOCs will look like.
And I know that you're looking at it in one way, and that there's been a lot. One of the comments you made is that the MOOC is becoming the textbok. How do you see that?
So MOOC is think of MOOC as a code word. How many of you were around in the early '80s when the word risk in the whole computing field was hot? Some of you. So if anything was cool, it said, oh, that's a risk. It was a risk concept. So today MOOC has sort of captured the imagination of people, where in learning, it began to embody a lot of cool stuff. And the way I see it going is MOOCs are really applying online technologies to reimagine education and reach a lot of students. And so initially, the large numbers of students signing on really has caught the attention and the imagination of all of us. However, I think the lasting impact of MOOCs will be in how we reimagine and reinvent education. And we are seeing some of that happen already, where it's not just access to students around the world, but as we bring it back onto our campuses, as we rethink how we teach on campuses, where we completely disrupt the way things are done and bring the best of online and in-person to our campuses, I think quality of education is simply going to increase dramatically. Just as an example, we licensed one of the edX courses to San Jose State University in Silicon Valley in California last fall. So there, the students took a edX MOOC in a localized version that we call, another 4-letter word, SPOC, Small Private Online Course, due to my colleague Armando Fox from Berkeley. And so they took this course on campus, and there the students would watch the videos and interactive exercises and virtual laboratories that are part of edX courses in their dorm rooms. They would come to class, and there they would interact with the professor, asking questions for some time, and then for the remaining time, have small group discussions. And by doing so, the quality of learning has gone up significantly, and the learning outcomes indicate with some preliminary results, the failure rate for that course went from 40% traditionally down to 9%. So we are seeing ways in which we can dramatically increase the quality of education as well beyond these numbers. And I think that might be the lasting impact of MOOCs and online technologies in the longer term.
Well, I mean, along those same lines, I mean, recently Clay Christensen predicted that in 15 years, half of all colleges would be bankrupt and out of business. Do you guys agree with that?
No, I think that would be tragedy, frankly. I think that there's something very important, almost sacred, about the student-professor relationship, especially for the weaker students. When you have a professor go in and help them one-on-one, that's just incredibly valuable. So the way my co-founder, Daphne Collar, and I got together to do this was, Daphne has actually been a pioneer in flipped classroom pedagogy. And to elaborate on what kind of Anant was describing just now, most of our universities are using MOOCs to create more space in the classroom for interactions. As people like us offer top courses online for free, I've often been asked, if anyone can go online to take a free Princeton class, why on earth would anyone still pay $200,000 for a Princeton degree? I think the answer is that the real value of attending a top university isn't just the content. You go there instead for the interactions of the professors, the interactions of other equally bright students. So many of you know about the flipped classroom model, in which we and others are putting content online so that students can watch the lectures to the quizzes online. And what this does is it preserves the classroom time, those precious 3 hours a week that the registrar gives us. It preserves that classroom time for much deeper interactions, for the amazing professor-student, for the small group problem solving, which I think is the real value of attending a top school. And I think this is true both for the Coursera partners, the elites, as well as community colleges, where by freeing up the local instructor from having to do content preparation, they can go in there and provide that amazing one-on-one mentoring. I think that we as a society actually need more professors and more capacity to serve the many students today just can't even get into required classes in order to get the degrees.
No, do you agree? Do we need more professors?
I totally agree with my friend Andrew Ng, and I love Clay Christensen, but he's just flat out wrong. I think one of the things you learn in this space, when things are moving so fast in the age of the internet, and in 1995, if you'd ask people what would be the killer app for the internet, nobody would have dreamt about Facebook and social networking as being a killer app. But that happened 10 years later. So there's just no predicting. I think that online learning and MOOCs of the form of Coursera and Udacity and edX and so on, I really view these as a rising tide that will lift all boats. I think rather than putting universities out of business, I believe it will make them robust. It will make the quality of education substantially better in each of these universities. Heck, we haven't had a major innovation in learning since the printing press. This is really one of the biggest innovations in learning since that time. And when we bring a big innovation like this, of course there'll be disruption. Who knows what the world is going to look like 10 years from now? It's going to be different. But I really do believe that this is like a rising tide that will improve all universities. As another example, the Mass Bay Community College and the Bunker Hill Community Colleges in Massachusetts are offering edX courses in a flipped model in their classrooms. And the professors are loving it, the students are loving it. So we believe that by disaggregating education, where you think of this as a new textbook, if you will, I believe that through richer content, through better blended learning, through improving the quality of education everywhere, I think this will improve the quality of universities. And I believe that students will come in larger numbers to these universities, much less than them going bankrupt.
So and we had some people who raised their hand early on who had students who were taking MOOCs. Certainly, you both have great faith in the future of the university, which I guess absolutely is wonderful. But certainly, things are going to change and shift. And so what happens when more students come in already having taken some of these MOOCs? High school students, how's it going to change the high school? How's it going to change the college? How's it going to change the course, the path through college?
I mean, won't that be wonderful if high school students come in knowing more? One of the things we did was we worked with ACE, the American Council for Education, which did a review for 5 of our courses, and they made a positive credit recommendation for a few of these MOOC courses on Coursera. What that means is that high school students will now be able to take these courses and potentially earn academic credit that could perhaps be transferred into universities. And I think it'd be fantastic if high school students can get a head start on college. I think the other effect of MOOCs and college credit will be that, yeah, I guess, you know, we live in a world where there are a lot of working adults that, for whatever reason, do not yet have a college degree. And I think the convenience of an online class, one in which you can earn academic credit from the convenience of your own home, that will help to bring a lot of working adults back into the education system. Now, this will cause problems for us when there are more students wanting to enroll at all of our universities than we currently have capacity for. But I think that's a good problem if it raises demand for education.
So I think, much as I said, we should not, prognosticate and, look into a crystal ball into the future, but I will do so anyway.
That's what our job is.
So if you look further out, how will it change the university? As a lot of students come in taking these courses, and these discussions are underway at all our universities. So, if a student pops up to me, and let's say I teach a circuits and electronics class at MIT, and the student has come in, and he's from Indonesia, and he has a perfect score on circuits and electronics taught online. And at edX, we pride ourselves on our courses being of the same rigor as campus courses. And he says, I have 100. So what am I going to do? Am I going to make him sit in my class and warm the seats for a whole semester? And this is a hard, challenging question. And I believe the model we will get into is something, maybe we can call it continuous education. Not continuing, but continuous education. So what might happen is, instead of thinking about this 4 year modular degree program, why 4? Why not 7, 3, 2? Where did this 4 magic number come from? I did 4 years of undergraduate education, and then I have to spend the remaining 70 years of my life working. How do I know that what I learned in those 4 years is exactly what I needed for the rest of my life? And so I think the form of education will turn into continuous education, where a number of students coming in from high school will have taken a lot of these courses from Coursera, from Udacity, from edX, and so on, and come in with high quality learning already. And it's quite likely that maybe they can start off with the future second and third years right away, and maybe they've covered a lot of the initial years. Okay, so, and then let's say they spend a couple of years in a university, and then for the final year, how do we know that what they're going to learn is exactly what they need? So maybe they'll leave and go to work. Just think about it. Just-in-time education. Okay, so you go and start working, and then you take courses online as you go. So think of this education as taking this 4-year program and then feathering, the first year early on and feathering the 4th year later, and think of a continuous process. You do get the university experience, which is important, but then you become a continuous learner, a lifelong learner. So my projection is that that's what life in university will look like a few years from now.
Just to elaborate on what Anant said, which I agree with, I think the old model of education where you go to school for 4 years and the next 40 years coast on what you learn in college, that model just doesn't make any sense in today's rapidly changing world, where all of us need to keep on getting regular booster shots of knowledge in order to stay current. And I think MOOCs, the convenience of an online class, is bringing a lot of adults back into the education system. I suspect that might turn out to be the biggest transformation.
So what you're describing really profoundly does disrupt this idea of this chunked 4-year period of time for which we start saving from when our children are infants, when they're first born. So there's a cost pressure here. So we're talking about cost and coming in and maybe doing college in fewer years. But what I'm also hearing is having to come back and continuous learning. So what is that kind of presses the credit question? And I know that there's been some effort to kind of begin giving some kind of credit and verifying the success of class taking. But how do those two pieces fit together? What is the cost and the credit, and how is that evolving right now to affect people in a year, in 2 years, 3 years, 5?
Yeah, so whereas we have 5 courses that have been reviewed for possible credit more over time, we just started with 5. The other thing we've been seeing is that a lot of students are already taking the informal certificates that we've been printing for them and putting them in their resume and using them to find better jobs. I taught one of the first MOOCs, the machine learning class. I've heard from a lot of my students, quite a few of them, that would email me saying, Professor Ng, thank you for your class. I just got a job, and when the employer was handing me the job offer, they told me, it's because of this Stanford class that you listed on your resume that you took. We're hiring you for a job that requires you to use this machine learning class skill that you learned, and this is why I'm hiring you. So it's been very gratifying to hear from students that employers are taking it seriously. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to let students show off what they know, I guess, because I think it's important that students be able to get credit for their work or use it to find better jobs or what have you. There was one other thing we did recently, which is our university partners, until recently, all MOOCs were printing certificates with whatever name the student gave us, and we didn't want to print certificates with the brands, the very valuable brands of our university partners to, people that might not even exist. We're printing certificates with names that just someone typed into a web browser. We don't even know if these people exist, much less whether or not they actually did the work. So one innovation that I'm quite proud of recently was we launched something called the signature track, in which we do some work to verify the student's identity. So we check your ID, look at your photo. Every time you submit the homework, we use technology to verify it really is you doing the work. And on the basis of this, we are starting to issue certificates that carry, the Duke University, UPenn, UVA brands. We really didn't want to print thousands of certificates with our university's brands to people that might not exist, but with the signature track product, I hope these become even more valuable sort of verified credentials that students can use. And then, of course, for the college credit recommendations, we wanted an even higher level of security. I think one obvious solution would have been to send everyone to a standardized testing center, but that turns out to be inconvenient to a lot of the students. We talked to students and they said they didn't want to do that. So for that, we've rolled out a digital webcam proctoring. I'm not sure if you've seen this, but it turns out if you have a human proctor watch you take an exam via a webcam, it's actually surprisingly secure. Like if you've been on a video chat and you're looking off to the side, it's pretty clear, doing something suspicious. And so based on that, we'll be issuing certificates with proctored exams that you can take from the convenience of your own home, important for working adults, I think, and that's what will carry academic credit. So those are the things where there's still a lot, we're still very early, frankly. There's still a lot of thinking to be done, but that's how we're starting to put in place more academic integrity, print verified certificates, and help students kind of get credit for their work.
So Anant, cost and credit.
So I want to take a slightly different view of cost and credit. I think there's been a lot of talk about cost and credit. And so let me address what I really think about cost and credit. And then I'll talk more about the short term as to what we're doing about credit for the short term. So first of all, in terms of cost, there's been a lot of discussion about cost, $1 trillion in debt. As I was checking into Hilton this morning, someone flashed up, the Wall Street Journal in my face and said, public school tuitions go up by 8%. So cost is uppermost in people's mind, as it should be, I guess. The way I like to look at it is really efficiency, not just cost. Because just because something costs $10, how do you know it's worth it or not? What if something costs $20? Maybe you prefer the $20 item because it's worth it. So I like to think of it as efficiency. What is efficiency? Efficiency is a ratio of quality, of outcome, divided by the cost. So really, if at the end of the day, it is quite possible to keep the cost the same, but if we can dramatically improve the quality of what we do, the outcomes, like the San Jose State University experiment I talked about, where student failure rate dropped from 40% to 9%. That's a dramatic improvement in quality, and there are discussions about reducing cost, and that can be done as well. But we should really look at outcome divided by cost, and I think we should really move the discussion to what are we getting for our dollar. So that's what part about cost. In terms of credit, I really think, again, thinking out a few years, I really think that the way we think of credit, it's really such an antediluvian concept. Why is it that I have to go to 4 years to college and take a stovepipe set of courses in mechanical engineering and then come out with a degree in mechanical engineering? But the whole world is changing around us. People are looking at microcredits. People are looking at badging. It's a complete disaggregation of learning, and so people want skills. When I look at a resume when someone applies for a job, I'm looking at, if I'm looking at a software position, can this person hack XML? Can he think like a computer scientist? Does he have computational thinking? I'm looking for certain skills, and so the whole degree concept, particularly when you can get content and learning from a number of places, I think we'll really rethink the whole thing. But that said, that's the future. But that said, in the present, edX is doing a number of things about credit. First of all, in a number of universities, credit is being offered to students who've taken edX courses. So for example, the National Universities of Mongolia sent us a photograph with 10 of their students who took an edX course. They gave them campus credit for an edX course. So many universities around the world have begun giving campus credit for the students who've taking these courses. There are other approaches as well, where as people take these courses, they can get credit through places like ACE. So we're working with ACE. They're evaluating one of our courses for credit. Now with ACE, you don't get credit. They give you what is called a credit equivalency. And then you still have to convince a university to then give you credit for that course. So that is happening as well. We've also launched, about 6 months ago, we began working with Pearson VUE that offers proctored exams in testing centers where they verify both identity and activity. And our society is used to doing that. Your SATs and ACTs, you go to these testing centers, you're used to doing that. And when people trust these scores because your proctors are watching you and it's hard to game the system. And so we worked with them and partnered with them and we launched a pilot where we charged students a small fee to go to a testing center. And the pilot went really well. And so we will be introducing this in a number of other classes. And there are multiple other approaches. We give students a certificate. We give students an honor code certificate or a proctored certificate. So let's say you don't take a proctored exam, you take the honor code exam. Students get a certificate from a university with a little X attached to it. So if you take a Harvard course, you get a Harvard X certificate, a UT Austin course, a UT Austin X certificate, or a Berkeley X certificate. So that you can use these with employers, and these are verified, these are digitally signed, edX maintains a record, and students are telling us that they're using these certificates already for jobs. Many of them applying, high schoolers applying to universities, and using this as a way of showing what they've done. So again, people are using these credentials in a variety of ways to further their careers.
So using the credentials and getting credit, we heard Andrew use the story about using a credential and it kind of impressing people in the job market and using it in university. I guess one of the questions I have is when now that it's starting to happen, that we're starting to see credit given, are we going to see a shaking out? Will MIT ever accept a Coursera credit for its class? I'm not sure. Are there certain places where you imagine who are eager or interested in credit and places that are not interested in credit? Is it state universities that are going to end up accepting top university, these elite university credits, or do you see something else?
I think some of this will shake out. I give it 1 year.
Okay.
The whole movement, the MOOC movement is 1 year long. And I know a number of students who took edX courses. I know examples of students who've taken an edX class and they've applied to MIT and Berkeley and so on. And these students are going to come in this fall into our universities. And we will grapple with this question. And so within a year, we will find out which of the universities are going to be giving credit. And I believe many of them will be giving credit. It's a decision that is completely up to the university. It's not up to me at edX or any other MOOC provider. It's a university decision. And many other university systems have indicated that they are interested in exploring giving credit. We are in the land of the University of Texas system, a real visionary system, and they've indicated that they're interested in giving credit and exploring this concept for courses taken online. So I think I give it 1 year, and we will see a lot of credit being given.
Andrew, you have so many university partners. What are you hearing?
The honest answer, I don't know. My prediction is that the biggest effect of the ACE credit recommendations, 5-hour courses and hopefully maybe edX courses in the future, will be on the working professionals. I think that if you have access to high school and take a few classes, that's fine. But I think the biggest impact will be on the working adults that, for whatever reason, do not yet have a college degree and would love to go back to school. But if you're working, if you have kids, it's difficult. And I think the convenience of an online class where you can earn academic credit, I'm just hoping that that'll let them take the first step and then have that be transferred into a regular university and finish out the rest of the degree at a regular university.
Or does one need to be transferred? Are we on the cusp of an all MOOC degree?
Boy, I think Coursera isn't a university. We don't offer degrees or academic credit. We're a humble hosting platform, and leave it up to others to offer degrees.
But can you see?
A very politically correct answer. Ditto. But that said, again, just imagine I was a university administrator, and I think universities are thinking about how, as they offer courses, I mean, this is going to be a market force. Students are going to be coming and saying, look, I've taken the exact same course, and are you going to really make me sit down in your class and take the whole course again? As I said, I give it 1 year.
Yeah. So I suspect what might happen is similar to AP courses. If you've taken an AP class, you get to place out of the certain corresponding class in the university because it just doesn't make sense to retake the same class. But you still have to take, other maybe more difficult classes in the university to earn your degree. So I think there might be some openness to that. But we'll have to, as Anant says, I think we'll have to see.
So one of the things that I'm curious about is you mentioned the grading and the humanities and the poetry professor, and yet a lot of the talk around MOOCs are around highly technical courses. Is there a difference? I mean, we've treated them as if they're all the same, and that actually, I mean, the model of the way university courses worked is they're all 12 weeks, they're all a particular length of time. We treat them in the same way. One, does the MOOC platform kind of allow for differential treatment, and are the humanities any kind of a special case, or do they fit into this just as perfectly well as the technical aspects?
No, I think there's a big, I think in terms of technology and in terms of the basic features, it might be similar. But I think I've certainly learned a lot in talking to professors teaching humanities courses. And there's a different, I'll give you one example. As we talk to some of our partners from Wellesley College, humanity professors from Harvard, Professor Naj, who's teaching a Greek history course on edX, or Professor Terry Fisher, treating a course on copyright law on edX. And they asked for some things that hadn't occurred to me. I'll give you one example. So edX introduced a very innovative technology called cohorts, again, driven by market demand from Wellesley College and Georgetown and humanities courses, where we have MOOCs with very large classes, with a lot of students, they're big discussion forums. So the one innovation we did, and this was done by our partner Berkeley, we are open sourcing our platform, and Berkeley contributed a lot to the platform. They implemented a new kind of discussion forum where we could embed a localized discussion forum next to every topic. But that was still not enough. They wanted really small group discussions. How do you create a field of 20 people discussing things? So we introduced this concept called cohorts. So in Terry Fisher's class, for example, there are cohorts. How do cohorts work? So the professor is able to divide up the class into sections of a discussion forum into cohorts of 20 students each. And the professor can say, for this topic, it's not going to be a big discussion forum, but you're going to have lots of little discussion fora, I guess. I should ask my colleague here from New York Times as to what's the right forum or forums or fora, but either way. So there, what students do is they gather in small groups of about 20 and have discussions among themselves. And you assign a TA or a moderator for the section. Now, students can moderate themselves. So we're building algorithms in our platform on edX to be able to automatically create such smaller forums. And so we believe that's one key innovation, and that demand really came from humanities professors. And of course, the second one is free-form grading. So on the edX platform, we have, starting with the chemistry course in the fall, we launched several free-form graders, and you will hear more about them as we talk about them over the next few weeks.
Yeah. I don't know that humanities classes are different from engineering classes. Today, I think the main type of class that we can't teach in a MOOC are courses that require physical interaction with objects. So I don't think you ever learn to play tennis on a MOOC. But other than that,
maybe we, right?
Yes. No.
I actually disagree. So, but go ahead.
Wow. All right. Connected. But I mean, today we have classes on, the humanities, the social sciences. If you want to learn to start a company, we have classes on that. If you want to learn to do finance, we have classes on that. If you want to learn about computer games, if you want to learn about the care and feeding of horses. We have over 300 courses on almost on so many different topics. That I think, yeah, so I don't think we can teach tennis, don't think we can teach surgery, courses that really require interactions with labs. Although we've had some instructors send the student out to the field, interact with physical things, and take a picture with your cell phone, and then upload a cell phone picture to our website to be peer graded. I've been humbled by how our 300 plus professors have come up with really innovative ways to use the platform and use peer grading. I've been very surprised at just the diversity of the range of topics that can be taught in a MOOC.
So Anant, you think you can learn to play tennis on a MOOC?
I never say never with technology. When you have incredible innovators like Andrew Ng and others, creating these incredible things in online technologies, never say never. I'll give you a couple of examples. So I flew from Boston to Austin this morning on JetBlue. I think the odds are 9 to 1 that the pilot learned to fly the plane on a flight simulator. Of course, he must have spent 5% of his time, doing some real practicums. But if he can fly in a plane with pilots who learn to fly on a flight simulator, and our Army veterans who go flight wars on battle simulators. So why not? So on edX, as an example, for many years, people had told me, you'll never be able to do online labs. All universities have been doing online courses for a couple of decades. I said, oh, you can never do online labs. But one of the things we built was a virtual laboratory experience where you give people a blank sheet of paper, an online piece of paper, a bunch of components, and in a game-like fashion, ask students to build designs. It teaches them creativity, and you can do that. You can have them build things completely virtually. And a modern-day student, a millennial student, are perfectly comfortable, doing anything from flying to fighting completely online. So I think never say never. With things like virtual labs and so on that we have on edX, which I think is a great innovation, and virtual simulations. We have students playing with things you can never play in real life. So in the biology course, Eric Lander's biology course that launched on edX yesterday, there are virtual gaming tools where you can construct gene sequences and so on. I mean, how do you can visualize these things and play with them online. You can't do them in real life. So I think we can actually do better than real life in many areas. So never say never.
So better than real life is a moment for me to ask kind of a final question before we open it up. And with that provocative claim, I have to say there's so much conversation about MOOCs. And if anyone saw Tom Friedman's column today, it's just amplify it. So there's so much hype. Is there too much hype about MOOCs? Is this not really changing the world?
Let me share with you a personal story. Some months ago, slightly less than a year ago, after a party in California, after everyone else had left the party, it was just a friend and me sitting on the floor chatting. And in the course of that conversation, my friend started taking out her wallet and counting $10 and $20 bills to see if she could scrape together $700 to pay her tuition at her community college. I guess some of you might be surprised that I have friends with like a range of economic wealth, but $700 is a lot of money to a lot of people. I think we live today in a society where education, a great education, has been available only to the elite and only available to the privileged. And I would love to live in a world where that's no longer the case, where everyone has access to a great education. Thank you. Thank you. And I think far too many students today are having to choose between paying for college and paying for groceries. But with technology, I think we can build a world where that's not true, and where even a poor kid born in Africa has nearly equality of opportunity as a kid born in the wealthy suburbs of Washington, D.C. And if we can make that happen and give everyone free access to a great education, I think the world will be a much fairer and also a much more interesting place to live in.
Well, very well said, my friend Andrew. Very well said. And I could not agree more. Going back to your hype question, has there been too much hype? Absolutely, there's been too much hype. And what a good idea. And if Laura, if you and your colleagues had to hype something, what better than education? For the first time, we're going to make that school teacher a rock star.
It's true. Wonderful. So I would love to have some questions from the audience, and I believe that there are some microphones. Yes, I see them. I think I see them. Okay. Is it right there? Wonderful. Please.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself and say who you are and your question.
My name is Pankaj. I'm an entrepreneur from Houston, Texas. My question is for both of them. The world of internet produces only one winner. Let's take Amazon.com, Google.com, eBay, Facebook. The second position is always far, it's very distant. So which one of you will be the winner and why?
Honestly, I tend not to like to think about ourselves too much. Right now, Coursera is the larger platform, but honestly, whenever we think about these things, I think when you work in education, it's all about the student. So let me share with you another, I guess, way back, while this is still a small Stanford research project, I put in place a rule that whatever we do, figure out what's best for the student, and we do that, and that's the end of it. And even today, before anyone gets a job offer from us, I spend 5 minutes talking to them about basically this #1 rule of Coursera. And so, to me, I feel like I don't care. The one that I want to win is a student. I don't care if Coursera wins, don't care if edX wins. I want the student to win. That's the only thing that matters.
I think that's good. I would add. I would add to that the number of businesses. You pointed out some businesses where, there was a dominant player, but I can point to a number of businesses where multiple approaches can survive. I'll take a dig at my friend Andrew here as well. edX is the quality leader in terms of online courses, and edX philosophy, and the edX philosophy is very different from the Coursera philosophy in that edX is a nonprofit. We are a platform is going to be open source, so everybody in the world can not just watch free courses, but everybody in the world can put up free courses as well and take the platform. Anybody can use it as well. And so that is a big part of what edX is about. And there are many examples. I don't even try to make a comparison here between edX and Coursera versus the two examples I'm going to give you. But if you look at Microsoft and Windows and Linux and open source, there are two examples with two very different philosophies. One for profit, Windows, one on a open source Linux approach, and both have a very strong place in the world, and it's good for the world that you have multiple such opportunities for people, so that I think the whole world benefits. So I think multiple great players, all doing society a whole lot of good.
Thank you. Great question.
Hi, I'm Rob Robertson. I'm not really here with anybody. I'm on vacation, actually. This is how I spend my free time. My question is about content, the end customer of your content. So we've been talking about the professors to the student. What about professors to other professors? How do you feel about other professors taking content, say, from one of your courses and someone else's courses, and maybe it's and mashing those up, weaving it into their own thing, and then deliver it? How does that? How do you feel about it from your chairs? And in turn, if you could channel your faculty and tell me how they might feel about it.
I could start by trying to answer that question. So one is open source for the platform. edX, I personally also believe in open content using Creative Commons licensing and so on. And last week we announced 6 international universities that have joined edX, and one of them was Delft University. I think they made a landmark choice, and we should applaud Anka Mulder and others from Delft University. They said that they would put their courses on the platform, and students can take the courses for free around the world. But they also said that their courses are going to be put on the platform, but they're going to release the copyright on the course content under a Creative Commons license, so that people can then take their content and mash content together. And I really encourage other universities to do the same and think of open content. We also have examples of professors that take content, like, and again, going back to the San Jose example, content created by a professor at University A, and using that content in a University B as a new textbook. And initially the professor said, they said, look, I was born to lecture, and now you don't want me to lecture. But overall, when the quality improved and they got great results, and they felt much more connected to the student, they really liked the fact that they could mix and match between a MOOC course and their own campus teaching. So I think that's going to happen.
I think open content is great. Coursera, as a hosting platform, we leave that decision in the hands of university partners. The content that I personally author, I tend to Creative Commons a lot of that. But if there's a university that chooses not to, I think ultimately we respect their decision. About the mix and match model, I think that's an interesting model. So far, we're focused on the courses idea for the following reason. It turns out that Wikipedia, by way of contrast, is, I think, an amazing resource. I think every single fact of calculus is on Wikipedia, but no one's ever learned calculus from Wikipedia. Not meant as a criticism for Wikipedia, obviously, which I think is amazing, but I think there's a lot of value to having a single instructor structure a curriculum as well. And so we've just been on that end of the spectrum. But again, I think we're in the early days of figuring out how all this should work, and I don't know what the final answer will be.
Great. Yes.
Hi guys, I'm Travis DeVitt. I'm an investment analyst here in Austin, Texas. Don't hold that against me. Sal Khan was also an investor before he went on to Khan Academy. But I'm fascinated and blown away by what you're trying to do to release high quality online education to the world for cheap. But one of the things I'm struggling with understanding is you guys currently offer your classes, at only a certain point in time. You don't offer them on a persistent basis like a Khan Academy might do. That seems to me to maybe be one of the reasons why your completion rates are low, and it doesn't really seem to serve that kind of adult learner, continuous learner market. Can you talk about why you aren't doing asynchronous courses and if that might change in the future?
Sure. So we've experimented with both models. I guess right now we're at one extreme where there's a certain deadline, a certain time, certain deadline. That has a nice cohort effect because if 50,000 students are all working on problem set 4 at the same time, there's community that can discuss it. There's the other extreme of when you show up and do whatever you want, whenever you want. We did experiment with that for several classes and found that the overall web traffic was much lower. And I think the problem is if you could do the homework tomorrow, then tomorrow you could do it the day after. So between the two extremes, having a synchronized deadline has worked better. Having said that, we have heard from many students, especially working professionals, that the more flexible timeline would suit them better. So I think the right solution is somewhere in between the two extremes, but we haven't quite figured it out yet.
Yeah, there are courses on edX that are self-paced. So for example, the Introduction to Computer Science CS50X by David Malin from Harvard on edX doesn't have weekly deadlines. What they've done is they've kept the course, they said they'll keep the course open for 8-9 months, and sometime in April, everything comes due at that point. So if you're a really, really fast learner, why do you have to wait for weekly deadlines? You want to get moving fast and get through the content fast. So if a student is able to do the whole thing in a week, they can get done and submit the whole thing at the end of the course. And so there is an example of a course where you can do it all in one go. There's also the continuing learner, where many of them are doing this for self-study and don't quite care about a credential. So there, with the many edX courses, we leave them open. So you can the course is left open, even after the course is over. So you can go in and, just do self-study on the course. And you just won't get a certificate at the end of it because the exam solutions and so on are out. But you can still do the course and for your own edification.
Great. Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nelson Hiller, and I'm on an advisory board for another MOOC called the World Education University, which shares your passion for what you're doing. The question that I have for you is about sustainability. What are the strategies that will carry this into the future and cover the costs of creating, maintaining, operating, improving, and all of that?
Yeah, so let me say a few words about that because it's something I feel strongly about. Here's another story. When I finished teaching my first class, 100,000 students, I actually got email from a lot of my students saying, why did you do this for free? You should have charged $5 for it. It'd be very lucrative. And $5 is like cost of a latte, cost of a cup of coffee. Anyone can afford that. But I think what is to you and me cup of coffee, to a poor kid in India or a poor kid in Africa, chances are not only do they not have $5, they probably don't even have a credit card. And as an educator, I feel like no matter how lucrative, if we aren't serving like the neediest and the most vulnerable in our society, you know, I'm just kind of not at all interested. So that's why I feel like the content really has to be free to make sure we're serving those populations. But having said that, we do need to bring in revenue to keep this sustainable and help our university partners cover their content production costs. And so we're building out several things. One is the signature track, where we verify the student's identity and print, you know, like a Duke University branded or UVA or UPenn or whatever, like a verified certificate with the universities in our brand. That's something for which we charge a modest fee. But again, it's kind of company philosophy. Before we launched that, before we started charging, I actually told my product team, once again, if we can't serve the neediest in our society, Portland and Kenya that doesn't have $50 to pay for this, I actually told my product team, we need to implement financial aid, and if financial aid isn't implemented, I will hold back the launch of the product. And I wasn't the only one in Coursera that felt that way. But so today, if there's a Portland in Kenya that can't afford it but would really benefit from a Duke University branded verified certificate, we have like a one-page financial aid and financial aid form, and ask them to fill it out, and we just give it to them for free. I guess I've often been told that our approach to bringing in revenue, where we're really most worried about serving kids in Kenya that don't have a single dollar, I guess I've been told a few times that these aren't the decisions of a normal company, but I feel like if you're in education, you know, I mean, if you aren't serving, if I didn't think we could serve the neediest in the society, you know, frankly, there's no way I'd be working this hard. It's just not interested. So will you get
enough revenue from the signature track to be sustainable?
We just launched the signature track slightly over a month ago, so it's still early days. The student response has been pretty enthusiastic, but it's still too early to tell. Yeah, but we believe that the signature track will be our largest source of revenue in the coming year. But we'll have to see. We just launched it, so it'll be some months before we can really figure out how well that's going.
And there are a number of ways in which we can try to be self-sustaining. So as you know, edX is a nonprofit. And so one way to do a nonprofit is to continuously go back to donors and until they get donor fatigue. So even as a nonprofit, we have to be self-sustaining, although our needs are going to be very modest because at the end of the day, I will just have to fund operations, invest in the platform. You know, I don't have to think about an IPO and so on. So I can, you know, just focus on sustainability for our platform without worrying about huge profits. So some of the revenue models we've been thinking about are not unlike the ones that Coursera or Udacity and others have been thinking about. One of the things we do have is we have a services organization at edX as well, where a number of universities want to put their courses on the platform, and we're actually very nicely revenue positive. So we have a services team that helps them put their courses on the platform for those that don't choose the self-service model. So we have a self-service model and tools that where people host courses themselves, and others where they say, look, give us some help with capturing video or other forms. And so that's one source of revenue. And there are other sources of revenue, such as, and right now we don't do that. You can charge for certificates, but right now even the certificates are free. We also have a proctored service where students can go to a proctoring center and take an exam. And so there, we launched that as a pilot, a couple of months ago, and it's an early pilot to see how the system worked. It worked well, so I think we will scale that up as well. And so there are a number of sources of revenue, but right now, I think as startups, we're really throwing things up, against the wall here and seeing what sticks, like in all true startups, and then being nimble to see what seems to work both for people that are our customers as well as universities who are our partners.
Okay, great. I realize that we're running over. Let's do one more question. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Devin Hariani. I'm a product manager for a local internet company here in Austin. So my question, Anant, first of all, you had a great comment where you questioned the whole concept of college. Why is it we have to go for 4 years and then get stamped with a degree? One of the things I wanted to ask you was there are some colleges out there that I've come to know, such as Waterloo University, that actually have a work-study program. So you go to school for one semester and then you work for one semester, and you do that throughout your entire 5 years there. is that a model that colleges and universities should be evolving towards? And if so, how come there are none other than Waterloo that I've heard of that are doing that model today?
Absolutely. I think that's a great suggestion, and that's a step in the right direction. In fact, a number of universities are doing that. Many universities are thinking about the semester online program, where for a semester, a student goes and works outside. You know, I've taught at MIT for 25 years. MIT has a program called the 6A program. In the 6A program, students spend the last year of their undergraduate program at a company, and they work at the company, but they would have to come to campus to take classes. The beauty of online learning, as you have all of these MOOCs around, now you can take online classes while you're working at the company. So I believe online courses and high-quality online courses from a variety of vendors, I think will be an enabler of such work study or continuous learning kinds of opportunities. So I think that's the future.
I think the Waterloo program is actually very, very innovative, and they do great by their students. But I think more broadly, you know, technology is in the process of transforming education. When the technology exists for one professor to teach not just 50 students, but 50,000, there is a potential there to transform education, both on our campuses and off. And one interesting thing I'm seeing is that at many research universities, faculty were rewarded more for their research than for their teaching, because arguably the research has a greater impact. But with MOOCs, we're seeing at many campuses a return to teaching with the flipped classroom, where instructors don't just lecture at students, but actually interact much more deeply with students, as well as MOOCs having such a large impact that universities are starting to, I've seen some universities start to take these things into account in promotion, because ultimately it's all about impact and student impact. So I think technology is coming rapidly, and is causing universities to rethink what is possible in education. But I guess none of us yet know, be it the Waterloo model or something else, that's the right model.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for coming. Let's have a hand for Anant and for Andrew. And thank you to Ron in South by Southwest. Good evening. Enjoy yourselves.